Chulin Chafei, and we are going to start. Bez Hashem, we're gonna start back again. We did this already, but we're going to do it quickly. The Mishnah Chav Daled Amid Beis, just to get this again quickly. Torah b'kli cheres, Tomei b'chol hakelim. So again, we're making a contrast. That what's Torah by kli cheres is Tomei b'chol hakelim. What's that? That's obviously the Avir. Avir kli cheres is Tomei and kol hakelim. I'm sorry, Torah b'kli cheres. Well, what's the Torah b'kli cheres is Negia Begabli, right? And Negia Begabli is Torah b'kli cheres is Tomei b'chol hakelim, right? And Torah b'chol hakelim, something that doesn't work in the Chalakelim, which is the Avir is Tomei b'kli cheres. Torah Rabbanon, something more Avir kli cheres Tomei v'gabei Torah. Gabai kli cheres, it becomes Tomei from Avir, right? But the Gabai is Torah. Avir kol hakelim Torah v'gabon Tomei. Nimsa Torah b'kli cheres Tomei b'chol hakelim. Torah b'chol hakelim Tomei b'kli cheres. Menani milizak Gemara. The Torah Rabbanon. Let's just see the Gemara, then we have to read the Tosis. So I'm sure you says the good Tosis. Menani milizak Torah Rabbanon. Toichai the Aval Bishlei Naga. Ella im kain naga. Maybe you only become tame if you were naga inside. Yeah. Right? That means it said there's two teiches. There's one teiche that says about that the kol kli cheres asher yipol mehem the seichon. And there's one klicheres, and it also says teicha b'kol asher b'seicha yitba, right? So one is nema teicha letame, that it's metame, which is kol asher b'seicha yitba, and nema teicha letame, which is klicheres asher yipol mehem elseicha, right? Ma teicha letame, when it's metame after bishlei noga. After Militame is alpha bishlei naga for also minalon. So in other words, that what that it's but that we know that when it's giving off toma, it gives off toma. Even if it doesn't touch, it's even me'avirut. For also minalon. Amar Rav Yonasan Atorei Yidal Klicheres Vafilu Malichardo. That means that what that the Torah says kol. That it says kol asher, says all the oichel and mashkin inside is going to become tame, and that includes even if it's full of a whole bunch of little tiny mustard seeds, and still it's going to become tame. How does it become tame? They're all tiny little dots. Teretz is it's all me'avira. So that's how we know that the ave is metame. Once we know that the ave is metame, so we have exer shava toichei to tell you that the toichai of when it becomes tamei is also ayidei avir and not ayidei nikita. Yeah, that's the Gemara. Now there's two things to read. I say first of all, you say the Tosis. Tosis is mechadish, and Tosis has a teseft, I think, a Tosis kainim that first a Tosis kainim that's mechadish and murdi chiddush, not like the pashtas of the Gemara that 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 it comes out, even though avir is what we right the source of avir is from giving off tuma, right? But it comes out like this, that when that now all for coming tame you only become tame de avir. But once the kliferis is tame, Zok Toisvis. Once the klicheres is tame, even Gabai could give off tama. Murder Chiddush, right? Hainu d'loy mitame migabai. Aval im nitma mitoichai nitma gam nami gabai or mitame acherim. Because I mean the B'teres kain. Right? What's the Teres kain? It says meruba midas dilitame militame. Sheklicheres mitame acherim me'achorav. Ve'ena mitame me'achorav. Klicheres could be mitame other things, could be matama other things from Gaboy, but it can't become tame from a Gaboy, right? So Mafurusha Toiske, right? with this shtickle Torah, Tosis is mitarit a murdiga kasha. Tosis is mitarit a mamish a big difficulty in the it's really a gemara later on in Arva Roitiv in Chulin, but it's in Arva Roitiv later on Kufyat Ches. That what's the shaila? The shaila is that the gemara is going to be mechadish that there's such a thing as a klicheres having a yad. And the shaila is, how is it possible to have a yad? What is a yad going to do? A yad, what's a yad? A handle. That the handle has tumah. So the shaila is what? The yad is going to be machnis tumah. It's going to become tamei more than the whole gabi. The please gav itself doesn't become tamei. And the yad, what's the yad going to do? Yeah, that's the shaila. That's the pliya. The Zaktais is very geschmack. The Ma'ishtikol Torah is very geschmack because since gabai is mitame. Once it became tame inside, it's mitame migaboy. So now you could say that the yad is also mitame migaboy. Not that the pshat is we're talking about becoming tummy. Avada klicheres can't become tummy, but a klicheres has gabay weird, but again giving off tummy. So, but again, yeah, that's what the yad's going to do. It's going to give off tummy. That's Tosis' shtickle Torah. That is Tosis' gewaltige plan for yad, right? Otherwise, if you don't say this teretz, you have to say one of two other mahalkim that the Ramban and the Rashba say for yad, that the pshat is you have to either say that it's a murdiga or xeris hakosov, that even though the gava kli even though the gava kli is not is does not become tummy or is not metame, but it's more kosher. That's the Ramban and the Rashba read is such a svara. Or the Ramban says even a shverer case. He says a case where you have a yad that has a teich in it. Somehow you have a yad that has a teich in it, and for some reason it's not considered it's egenically, but it's not considered as egenically, but it'll be considered a yad, and it's only become tummy because of the yad of the klikaris. That's the other eitzah that the Ramban and the Rashba talk about the Shiloh. What do you do with a yad? But Tosfos' answer is that that the yad is metame. That's Tosfos' answer. Yeah, I mean, the shot is of maybe you could say if you don't hold like Tosfos, maybe you could say that the shot is that you could say maybe that the yad that the yad is a handle. Since it's a handle, so it's a handle on the inside also. It's not just a handle on the outside. It's a handle on the it holds the whole thing, and it's a handle for the inside also. So maybe it's better than Gabi. Yeah, but that would be maybe a svara, not like Tosis. But Tosis let me know that yad can't be better than Gabi and Taka Gabi. It's only mitama als Gabi, and the Gan Yaakov wants to say that Nachmer from them. He wants to say that's the goof of the makar for Tosis. Again, Tosis says a chiddush that it's mitame migabe. That once it becomes tummy from inside, it could be mitame from outside. What's the makar of the pasuk? The makar is gufa from yad. Very geschmack. Okay, so that's one lum the shtickle. Now, um, um, there's times that we have to read ice. The Gemara says Hatari Idal Klicheres Vafilu Moli Chardol Vafilu Moli Chardol. So Tosis reads this like this. Tosis is very bothered. How can it be Mitama Moli Chardol? We know a cloud that Rabbeinu Tam is machadish that Thomas Erklin or Mashkin is only if midaraisa is only if it's a full if it's the size of kebeya. It's not only a shear of becoming. It's not only a shear of making something else tummy. It's also a shear of it becoming tummy. It doesn't become tummy. It's not like you should. But the Rabbeinu Tam says that avada Eichlin, that's not a shear of Kibbe, it doesn't become Tomei. So what do you mean, Vafilo Molichad, it's not going to become Tomei? That's a Tosis Esakasha. So Tosis, that Enechanami is Lavdafka. We mean even Molei Beyit. The reason why we use the Molichad is because The Lashon Chachamim are talking about Chardal because midrabanan it's tummy, but avad midaraisa it has to be bigger than a Chardal for it to become tummy. That's Tosas Ishtikal Torah. Um, if you want some lumdis over here, we should just read us over here a famous Reb Chaim. That Reb Chaim says Reb Chaim talks about toichai of a klicheres. How do you learn what is the tom of a klicheres? And it's negeya machlekes Rambam and Ravid. Machlekes Rambam and Ravid legabe the a negiya by a I'm sorry, the yad, if a nida puts her hand into a klicheres. So the Rambam says that you're not going to become, it's not going to become tummy. Yeah. So Ravid Bafal's the Rambam. He says, what are you talking about? That's not the pshat. The only reason, the only concern that you have that ain't nida leivarim is only to be given by Mishkav and Moshe. That the pshat is, Dr. Ravid, that's where it's the gear that you need the whole body. But otherwise, just like every negia, you don't have the whole body. You just have that place. Just the point of contact is enough. So over here also, yeah, just like Anita she could be mitam benegia with just a point of contact. So over here also, yeah, she stuck her finger into the klicheres. Why shouldn't the klicheres become tummy? That is the Ravid's time. So Reb Chaim, that the Rambam understood that it's not the pshat that Avakli Cheres is also Avakli Cheres is another entry point. You could touch a surface. Another entry point is the Avir. No, you have to be completely engulfed in that Avir to be Metame. So so Memela by Negia, that's fakir. The way you do Nagia is by just one point of contact. Masha Enkin, if you have to be Metame the Avir, you have to be completely in the Avir. And the Achronim say Lamoshel will be Nagia. If let's say you have a shear and you only have a Chatzi Beya inside, Chatzi Beya outside, it won't be like this Reb Chaim. If you have to be completely engulfed in the Avir for it to be Metame, you won't have Avir Klicharis. That the Avir Klicharis is not another place, not another not another place where you can point of contact. It's a whole it works with a whole different lumdis. Okay, so to my right, I'm later about the baravel of I'm later about the baravel of actually cares betama migabe. Now, um. It should be metame migaboy mikal v'choymer. Oh, so what does it mean migaboy? Zok Rashi, migaboy means benegia. Mikal v'choymer. And we're going to get right. This is mamish a point. Migaboy mikal v'choymer. Uma kol hakelim sheim. It means. So in other words, we're going to see from Rashi that Rashi learns migaboy it's a code word. It doesn't really mean migaboy. Why? Because negia is not necessarily outside. You can do negia inside also, right? It's all migab. It's all negia. It has nothing to do with outside or inside. The difference in between a klicheres and all the other kalim is that a klicheres could transfer tumor from its avir, and other kalim you have to touch the actual kli, but it doesn't make a difference the outside or the inside. There's no difference, right? Mikaba is just a code word for negia, right? That's how Rashi learns. We'll see in the Gemara. There's a reason why I'm being married to this. Yep. The klicheres mitav begam mikav chayim. Ma kol hakelim sheim mitam me'aviron. They don't become tamei me'aviron mitam migabon. However, they have the power to give over. They do become tamei. Benigia klicheres shemitam me'avira klicheres that becomes tamei from avira and then sheitame me gaboy. Right. One second. Then, yeah, Shinakamol again. Yeah, kli cheres mitam migab migav chayim. Ma kol kelim she mitam miavira mitam migabon kli cheres she mitam miavira ein odin she yitame megaboy amakro v'chol kli pasuach asher ein tzom pasul olam. V'chol kli pasuach. The pasuk says it's talking about in where by Thomas oil, and it's not the so far we have like this. So far we have a klishetef, meaning all the other kelim that go in the mikvah, so we call them a klishetef. They are all they become tame from their from by touching them by negia, and a klicheres it becomes tame me'avira. Right now the question is we want that the klicheres should also have tuma of negia, not only be me'avira. Yeah. Yeah, kavachayim. That's what the Gemara says. Now, it's not such a push to kavachayim. In places it asks the kasha that l'chura it's a talmachayim, it's a kavachayim of mufrif because because a klicheres. Yeah, because kol kelim could become a avatuma. Kol kelim could become a avatuma, but a klicheres can't become a avatuma. Yeah, that's that kasha. Okay, but let's leave that off in sight. Yeah, yeah, good. Klar. Okay, so the Gemara. Yeah, Amakra. The whole kli pasuk shein tamid pasal olav. Ezel kli shetumasa kedemes lepischai heavy yomer zeh kli cheres. What is what's the the pasuk says v'chol kli pasuk shein tamid pasal olav. So what does it mean? It means that every kli that was opened that doesn't have a cover tightly over it, it becomes tummy. Yitma, right? That's what the pasuk says. Ezel kli, ezel kli shetumase kedemes lepischai, which is the kli that the flower refers to Pesach. In other words, that we care about its entry point, because the Torah spoke about Torah. What is that kli teres? That's how Rashi learns the drasha that it's not a bezunder. There's no yalfus on this. It's just that we understand from the fact that the Torah discussed the opening of this kli. Obviously, we're talking about the kli charis because there's no other kli that we care about the opening. And what do we see, Lamaisa? The Torah says, and the Gemara fears ice. He ain't tamid pasal of who the tamid. Hayesh tamid pasal of tar. But Lamaisa, if it's closed off in Gansen, it's going to be tar. Why is it tar? The teretz is that you can't become tamid migaba. Yeah. Yeah. Now, I just want to red ice one zach. The Achronim declare a murdiga not Yerushalayim. Yeah, the Stipe was very busy with this. After we learned that a klicheres becomes that a klicheres becomes tamei me'avirei. How about what's the story with Nigia mitoicha? What? It'll be Nigia l'mashal in Chaim's vart l'mashal. They want to say that in the Rambam. The Rambam says if you didn't touch. No, but if let's say in Chaim's case, yeah, in Chaim's case, where I don't have avir because I'm not completely engulfed by the avir, but I did have an agir. Right. That's such a case, or yeah, or for whatever reason, avir is not working for me for whatever reason. Do you have? Is there an agir as well? So they want to say that there is an agir as well. Yeah. That's what they want to say. But Rashi is Mechur Mavur, Klor, that Rashi's Mavur, for the fact that Rashi, this is what I wanted to joke is, for the fact that Rashi over here keeps on joking that whenever it says Megabe, it means Nikir. It doesn't mean Mitama Megabe is like Rashi Benigir. Kediksiv Chalashi Yipol, Mashma Denoga. Mashma Denoga, Veloishna Gabe, Veloishna Avira. Yeah? Rashi keeps on reading ice that No, that's not a raya. One second. Kol hakelim mitam me'avir. Let all kelim be tamei me'aviron. Mikal v'chomer. Makli cher shem mitam me'gaben mitam me'aviron. Kol hakelim shem mitam me'gaben and anything shem mitam me'aviron. Because all the other kelim have a chumrah that they're mitam me'gaben. So let them also have the tum of me'aviron. Amakra toiz. Which darshins toichai shel zev toich shel acher. So tomorrow v'hani toichai hadashinu. We used it already. We used it. We said before that toichloi that we makish toichloi l'tame toichloi l'tayr, right? That toichloi l'tame and toichloi l'tame. That in other words, that we defined it. We defined it. It made it became tame from the way it makes things tame. From the fact that when it makes it things tame, it goes me'avira huadin. When it becomes tame me'avira. Right? So like the Gemara. Arba toichay ksiv. That means that we have the ability to have four drushes. Why? Because it says toichay twice, and each one it could have said toich. So it's toich, right? So what do we do with all the four drushes? Something like this. Chad legufei. One is lugufe, which is to tell you that by when it's mitame, that it's mitame kechardel is lugufe. V'chad l'gzereshava, which is when it becomes tame, that it also becomes tame me'avirei. V'chad l'toiche shel zev l'toiche shel acher, which is the drush that we just learned. That it doesn't Turkish Turkish Acha that Kleshetef do not have do not have Tum Mevi, right? And v'chad toichai v'loy toichai v'afilu kli shetef matzel. That what? That if you have a kli cheres, and inside the kli cheres there's another kli, even if that kli is a kli shetef, it's going to be matzel. That's the case, right? Now, so Rashi reads us like this. What's the grace of Chiddush of a Kli Shetef? Yeah, what's the grace of Chiddush of a Kli Shetef? So Rashi talks about says that the case is talking about that you have the shirts in the outer Kli, and you have the shirts in the outer Kli, and you have the Oichlin Umashkin in the inner Kli. And in that case of Rashi, that if it's going to be a Kli Cheres, it's not such a big Chiddush that why? So Rashi, because since a Kli Cheres, the inner Kli is a Kli Cheres, and a Kli Cheres is not Mitam Megabi, so if Shteitzach it's not Chaytz it's Chaytz Tom because it's not Mitam Megabi, right? So it's partial that it's that it's um it's partially that it's not nitma the stuff inside. So I feel klishatev matzel that what that a klishatev which could be nitma from the abbey, right? That's we have this chiddush of what that right? But the problem is the Rishonim are very familiar with Rashi that what because Rashi read Zos Lamaisa. Why Taka doesn't it work? Lamaisa doesn't work because even though the klishetef could be nitna migaboy, but a klicheres can never be mitama or kli. Can only be mitama or kli Yeah, right. A klicheres can only be mitama or kli So memela what? So it's true that it could have been nitna migaboy under other circumstances, but over here Lamaisa it can't be nitna migaboy, and therefore it should be batzel. So weiter what's the chiddush, right? Yeah, that's the kasha. That's the big problem. That's the big problem on that's the big problem on Rashi. So what's the Lamaisa? Why do I need a pasuk of Teichav like Teichav? So Tosas learns a different chiddush. Tosas says that it goes fakert. We're not talking about where the oichlin mashkin is in the inner kli. No, we're talking about where the oichlin mashkin is in the outer kli, and the kli and the sheretz is in the inner kli. So since the sheretz is in the inner kli, so I would think that the pshat is. Oh, so if the sheretz is in the inner and the inner is a kli chares, so it could be tama from the sheretz is going to be make the inner become tummy. So since the sheretz is making the inner become tummy, so it's taka not functioning at right? So Mamela, in this case, that's why I feel the klishat of matzah. That's Taisus' malach. That's Taisus' plan. Shaila is what's the Eitzah? Lloyd Rashi. Okay, good. There's a lot of lumdus over here. Maybe we should move on. I want to get to the base. Sag Gemara weiter. Sag Gemara weiter. Fragt Gemara another two comments. Okay, Miss Fragt Gemara for lo yiu kol akelim mitam megabon elam mitrechen ubenegia. This is the Smari the Chiddush, yeah. That v'lo yiu kol akelim mitam megabon elam mitrechen ubenegia mikavochem. So, right, and this is where the disciple comes from, that he says that it must be that there's such a concept as negia mitoichai by klicheres. Because otherwise, if there's no such thing as negia mitoichai by klicheres, so what's the havamina that you should have a negia mitoichai by klishet? By klishet that there has to be mitoich, that it has to be negia, but it should be mitoichai. This is the thing, either avin, not avin. Yeah. Teretz is there's such a thing as it. Yeah, it's too. Yeah. אלא מתכם בנגיע, מכף חיים במקרי, חרש שמתם מאוויר, אין מתם מגבי, כל הכלם שאין מתם מאוויר, אין דין שאין מתם מגבי, אבל קרא, וכל כלי פסוח שאין תום מפסל עולב, תום היו. Right? וכל כלי פסוח שאין תום מפסל עולב, תום היו. In other words, the who is coming lafuke. We already established that the pasuk of kli pasuach shein tom pasuk of tamehu is going on. What is talking about is talking about a kli cheres because there's a kli shetumasa kudamis lepiskoi have you ema ze kli cheres. Hi who the chiein tamid pasal of tame. Hi is tamid pasal of tar. Hakala kalim bein she is tamid pasal alim. She ain't tamid pasal alim mitamim that they could become tame from the outside regardless of if they are sealed tight. And the middle from there we have a raya that it's tamid pasal that the other kalim could become tame migaba. Yeah, that's the Gemara. Let's move on. Torah b'chol b'kliyates tamei b'chol b'kli matris. Torah b'kli matris tamei b'kliyates. Yeah, this is going to be. Well, let's see the Gemara inside. The Gemara is going to explain it. And these are mamish you say this. Turn Rabban. Golmei kliyates. What's golmei? Let's have a golem. What's called a glob, right? Golmei kliyates to me. In other words, as long as even if it's an unfinished kli, but as long as we'll see, as long as it has a toich, as long as it has a base kibble, even if it's not finished off and it's not fancy, it's not a finished product, it's tame, but it has to have a toich. Pshuteim, what's pshuteim? Pshuteim means it's flat. It doesn't have a clay kibble. Tohirim. And but masheng by kli matchis vaket kom kli matchis tohirim. If it's not a finished product, by kli matkis it's tar, but pshuteim is tamei. But avada pshute kliates is pshute kli matkis is avada tamei. What's the most obvious case of a pshute kli matkis is a knife. Yeah. Yeah, a knife is a pshute kli matkis. It doesn't have a base kibble, but it's a utensil that's used, and avada it is tamei. Nimtza Torah b'kli eitz tamei b'kli matchis Torah b'kli matchis tamei b'kli eitz. And the Bryce of his Elu hengo me kli eitz. Kol she'osid. What's a goylem of a kli eitz? Kol she'osid, something that you're still eventually going to loss and loshuf. Loshuf was a process that they would use to they would rub it with some kind of a grass to first of all to join it and to get off the edges. L'shabetz, L'shabetz is if they wanted to, if they were gonna put add on little decorations on it. Legarer is if they were gonna still um 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 sand it down. Lecharker is if they were gonna make pictures like uh you know um they were gonna carve out little pictures carving in. Lahatiach betunis is to is to is Lahatiach betunis is to use the skin of a fish has oils in it, and they would use that also to like a shellacking of wooden kalim. Now Tosfos has a kasha here. Tosfos is a murdig kasha. Maybe we'll see it from the Gemara's text in a second. That's a kasha that Rashi brings down the case of latiach be'oradag, and it's a Gemara in Sanhedrin. And over there, the Gemara says the Gemara Mefurish says that it's emisai nigmar milachtoi me she mamish that thing me she what's the logic Gemara 3/8 me emisai mikabel tuma Mishiyashufam be'aradag. So how can you say over here that our Gemara is saying kosher also lashon for the Shabbos legaro lechako latiach betunas and all these things? It's still tamei. What do you mean it's still tamei? The Gemara says over there mafurish that what that 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 Mishishufim Baradag is not is you need Mishishufim Baradag for it to become Tati. So this wants to say that that there's two Yeshufim Yaradag. There's one Yeshufim Yaradag where you use it, you need it pushed to take off the big splinters, and otherwise it's not useful. Mashalik and now Gemara we're talking about a different Yeshufim Yaradag. But Rashi is Mefurish. Rashi still Suya in Gemara, right? So the shad is what's the pshat in Rashi. So let's see in the Gemara later on. Maybe we have a shtickle later. So the Gemara right, again, if it's missing a stand, because of Eugen, it's missing an ear. Eugen is, I mean, is a handle, or Eusen is a hook. Yeah, tame. All these things are still tame. Why? Because for for um for um for a kli eight, it doesn't have to be all finished. Yeah. Mechus chatita tahar. But if it's missing, if it's missing, it's clay kibble, then it's tahar, right? Frek the Gemara mechus chatita pshita, right? Versteht sich, it's not a kli. Sagt the Gemara leitzricha the chok kapiza bekaba, the chok kapiza bekaba, which means that he took out some of the kav. In other words, like this, he was planning on making a kav, and he didn't make a full kav. He only made a half of a kav. So therefore, it's not nigmar b'chalal the kli that he's planning on making, and therefore, what's the halacha? The halacha is that it's not tummy. But I wanted to read this over here. What's the Gemara is not going to discuss about this anymore. What is the pshat? What's the word that pshuta kli matris is a kli and pshuta kli is not a kli? Yeah, that's the shat. So Rashi learns that the svara chitzayin is that a pshute kli is a kli. Why not? Before the psukim, pshute kli is a kli. Narvas. The pasuk says by kli makris. It says it says mikol kli eitz oy beged oy or oy sak. And we darshin that it has to be done with the sack. That it has to be the sack moli v'reikon. That it's metal moli v'reikon, and therefore that's why it needs a teich. Mashen kain and a klimatris doesn't need is a klimatris doesn't need a teich. Why? Because it's not hookish l'sak. Because it's learned from a different pasuk. It's learned from Achaz and Zavas HaKesef. That's how Rashi learns. Very simple. But the svarach litzoynu would have been that avada pshuta kli is a kli. Yeah. But the Rambam seems to learn they're fakert. That the Svar Chitzoina, the Svar Chitzoina of the Svar Chitzoina is that a pshuta kli is not a kli. Fakert. For toich, you need the toich to make something into a kli. If it's not a kli, it's not a. If it's not a toich, it's not a kli. That's what the Ram seems to learn, and that's what Achronim learn. I just don't understand how could you argue that a knife is not a kli? A knife is not a kli. Okay, so it doesn't have a toich, but a knife is not a kli. But that's the shmooze that they talk about. It is, what's the Svar Chitzoina before the pasuk? What would have been? Yeah, the Rambam brings a pasuk. The Rambam brings a pasuk that a kli is that the kli matris is pshuta kli matris is a kli. So there is a raya that the Svar Chitzoina would have been that it's not a kli. What do you mean? What a knife would not be a kli? What's the havamina? I'm not sure exactly. I don't understand exactly. But anyway, that's a big shmooze over here. What if there's if what the Svar Chitzoina would have been before the pasuk? Okay. Anyway, Zakti Gemara, right? Um. Oh, so I just want to say like this. What does the Gemara say? Chok chapiza bekaba. Chok chapiza bekaba means that if his plan was to eventually make if his plan was eventually to make the kli bigger, so then it bleibt mechusach, and if mechusach, um and he's and since and it's not going to be a kli, even though it already has a tayr, right? That's what the Gemara says. What's with the other stuff? What's the case over here? What are we planning? What's his plan? It says Elohen go mikli kosher osid loshuf l'shabes l'gara l'charke. What's the story here? We're talking about that these kalim are mamish in the process of being used, being made mamish, and he didn't take it off the assembly line at all. He's in the middle of making it, or the pshat is he took it off the assembly line and he's right now using it as is. So I think it's mustaba to say that chosek hakika is in the same case of that Yoshem kav hischel v'daitei lashlimai, right? But right now he stopped. But right now he stopped. He took it off the line, right? And that'll be the issue for Tosas Estira. The Gemara in Sanhedrin is talking about that he's not using it b'chalal. You want to know at what point creates me'emisai mekablim toma. Why? From when it's still on the assembly line, right? And he what's it called it? He took it off, and so you want to know at what point is mekabel toma? I'll tell you, it's from this point, right? But we're not talking about that he took it off to use at any given time. Over here in these Gemaras, we're talking about that he took it off to use it. The question is, since he's using it as is it good enough or no? Since it's not nigmar malakta, it's not a finished product, so it doesn't have a chashivas yet. But avada, we're talking about that he took it off for some sort of a time, right? It happens to be that the Rambam says that first. The Rambam, oh, I don't have the Rambam in Sanhedrin. The Rambam over there in Sanhedrin says that creates me'emsai mekabel tuma over there mishiyeshufim baradag. The Rambam read those, but if he decided to not do it, then it's mekabel tuma miyad. So I'm not sure. I'm not sure if the Ram is saying exactly this yishuv, right? The Ram is mashma that he was machad in Gansen to change his mind. But if we say such a thing that he stopped right now, for now he's not working on it, maybe such a kind of a thing would be a difference between the Gemara in Sanhedrin and the Gemara over here. Yashuv Tesis Dira. Okay, so the Gemara right Velo and Gomer Klimatis. Kosha Osid, Loshuf. The same thing. His Loshuf is he wants he's going to shine it. The Shabbates is to add on different kinds of um ornaments. Legar is to sand it down. The Charker is to kratzer, is to scrape in some pictures. Lahakish bekornis is to knock it with a hammer. Bechos a kan if it's missing a base. A oigen is a handle. A oizen is a hook. Or if it's only missing a cover, okay, that's already not counted. But everything else is going to be tar. Maish Nahani and Maish Nahani. So the more wants to know what's the difference in between creates and creates and klimatis legabe gome. We're not asking legabe toifus, like we know already, right? We're talking about which Tosis really says. Maish Nahani agomayu koi. The pshitayu pshita the creates who the iskish l'sak. So Tosis learns clearly, like Rashi, that the pshat is that the halacha of pshita creates. The reason why it's not mitam is because it's iskish l'sak and nothing else, and klimat is not iskish l'sak, and it's very gishmak. Yeah, and the sort of would have been that it would have been mitam. Yeah, but by gom, what's the Maishna Hani? So what says two svars. Rabbi Yochanan Amahil Ulechaved Asoyin. That since metal kalim are meant for kavod, so therefore until it's finished, it's not no one it doesn't have cheshivah. Both of these are svaris. Why a unfinished metal product is not considered a kli? My benayu kli etzem. So I don't know why people use this, but if you have a kli that's made out of an etzem, made out of a bone of an animal, that is going to blind is expensive, but it's not choshev. So the Gemara Vazar of Nachman Tamei Damar Nachman Kli Etzem Kli Matkis Dami, that a Kli Etzem is Kli Matkis Dami, that what, that Michlal the Kli Etzem one second before that Kli Etzem is Kli Matkis, that what, that the Golmei are going to be tar. So to Gemara, before we get to Golmei, 1 second, Klietzim becomes Tame. Where do we have Michlal the Klietzim Mekabel Toma? So Gemara ended. Tanya, Rabbi Shmuel ben Esher, Rabbi Yochanan ben Breka, Ema Matam Leim V'chol Masa Izim Tischato Lahavi Davar Haba Mina Izim. Rashi says, not umina karnaim. Abomina izim verstetzach is tummy, right? We have two things that abomina izim that are tummy. We have the hair, which is sak. This avada becomes tummy, and we have the hide, which is regular kliar as avada b'tama. Come abomina izim min hakarnaim or min haklaf. But now something else that comes from these, meaning like comes from the horns and from the hooves. If you make such a thing, it's going to become it also has a din of a kli. Shar behema v'chayim minayin. Tamloy v'chol masay. V'chol masay is a riboy that all behemoths, anything you made out of all behemoths is going to be a kli, and it has a fish. It has a fish. It's makabel tova. Im kematam loy meizim. Why do you say izim? Prat lo oifois. That anything that comes from an oif is not going to become tummy. Now Rashi over here, this is very interesting. Rashi says kigoin separne grifain shoysu mehem kalim. I don't know what this griffin is. It sounds like Rashi is talking about a mythical creature, the the griffin, but I don't know. I'm not sure. They want to say maybe it means some kind of a vulture, a griffin vulture, but I don't know. I'm not sure. Anyway, but what's negaya for the sugi is very very interesting, very very interesting. So it comes out like this. It comes out like this, that we know we have the Rambam shows that Avek that there's seven kinds of materials that are Makabel Toma, right? We have matris, eights, or I'm sorry, matris, eights, and klichanas, and then on top of that we have or and right, okay, matris, eights, and cheres, and then we have tzemer and pishtim, sak, no, and etzem chai. I'm not sure. I think that's how you say etzem chaya, and one more. So I'm not sure. Okay, that's the 7 of the Ram. Exactly what the numbers, I don't remember exactly how it goes. But the bottom line is, the Gemara says prat lo ifes. What's the story with Dagin? So it's a First Mishnah in Kalim, I think Perek Yud Zayin, which says that anything that was created on the fifth day is not niklal in what's called it. Is not niklal in is not mikabel tumah. So what's that? Not oifis and dag, right? The shaila is if that's nichol in this gemara of Talmud Izim, or you need an extra pasuk. And the shaila is why you should need an extra pasuk. But here's what's really negay. Mamshe kishmak shaila. There's a truth for a Moshe, that discusses if polyester is makabel. Yeah. So zok to Moshe like this. This is mamish the ganze tshuva. I have it's a tshuva in Chel Gimel. Where's the tshuva? I actually yeah, it's in Chelik Gimel Yodea Simenon Gimel. It's a shaila that he asked, or Rebbe Melech Booth asked the shaila. What's the halacha and what's the negaya? It's negaya. It's negaya. The halacha is that a woman that if she's roya dam and it goes on a kli that's on a beggar that's not makabel tumah, so she doesn't come tummy. So the question is, what'll be on polyester? So Moshe goes like this. He says, if it's made out of a polyester, apparently there's such a kind of a polyester that comes from trees, then avodas makabel toma. Then it's just like everything that's yetzim and eitz, it's all tummy. It doesn't matter. Doesn't matter if it was crushed. No matter who processed. It doesn't matter. He references the Chuvas Native Yehuda that talks about paper, things that if paper is makabel toma, the same thing. Yeah, it's avodas makabel toma, right? However, he says, but 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 most polyesters how is polyester made? Polyester is made out of oil, right? Zok there. Here's the thing. Aval ata shamati shenasa rak mehashemen hanimsa b'mayones me'omek ha'adama she'im kevade ein mekabel tuma gam loy midrabona k'kli adama. He says it's not called a Kli Adama because it comes from the mayonis of Tachzakaka. And if it comes from the mayonis of Tachzakaka, it's like a Kli Ayam. It comes from something that's Yotzim in Ayam, and therefore, Sokra Moshe, therefore, polyester would not be Makabal Tumah. That's what Moshe says. I have two times on this. First of all, it's already Gechish. Because the lashon of the Mishnah is, and Ramosha brings down the Mishnah. Mishnah says, "Mashenivra b'chamishi ein b'hem tuma." But what's mashenivra b'yom rishon b'yom sheni is yesh b'hem tuma. When was the oil? When was the oil wells under the ground nivra? Obviously, it was nivra day one with the karka. Anoilad min ayam, and oifis are not tame. But but something that's in the ground, that's a more chiddush that's chiddush number one. But v'oid, I just want to be more that nowadays with the oil that nowadays with the fracking process, it's avada. You're not going to say that it's bom and ayam, right? Fracking is, what fracking is? What they do is they have a way of extracting oil from the ground itself. So if the oil's in the ground, it's part of the ground. It's in the rocks, and in the rocks somehow they could force the rocks themselves to excrete yeah, yeah. So that's force down water down into the ground, and it somehow it fractures on the bottom this ground over here, and it forces since there's water down there, it forces out the oil to come up. So you're gonna say this is not an Adama? It's an Adama. Yeah, yeah. Okay, yeah. Okay. Anyway, that's the end of Gemara. Let's go weiter. Sagt Gemara weiter. Hachayiv b'shkedim hamorim poter b'mesukim. Hachayiv b'mesukim poter b'morim. Yeah. So what's this? this is there's a bitter kind of a two kinds of almonds, right? There's an almond tree that gives off bitter uh pears, and there's one that gives off sweet pears. So the chayev b'shkeidim hamorim is potem and besukim, chayev b'sukim potem and morim. Shkeidim hamorim kitanim chayav. Yeah, the one that's when it's going to become bitter, when it gets bigger, it's going to become bitter. So when it's ketanim, they're chayavim because now it's still somewhat sweet, and therefore ketanim chayavim, right? So therefore, even though it's not nigmar malachtoi, but since it's darker lechol at this point, so meli chayavim. Gedolim peturim because now they're bitter. Mesukim, the sweet ones, gedolim chayavim, ketanim peturim, ketanim apatim because they're not nigmar malachtoi. That is the that was our Mishnah. Rabbi Shmuel, Rabbi Yossi, Mishum Aviv, Zeh v'Zeh liftar. Amri. So what does it mean Zeh v'Zeh liftar? So she says Zeh v'Zeh liftar means that that the Ketanim are potter sai by Morim and sai by Mesukim. In other words, that we're pattering all Ktanim, that there's no such thing that you're going to be Mechayev Ktanim because it's eventually going to get because they're going to eat it now because it's eventually going to get bitter. Since the mice is not nigmar malachte, so therefore zev is el liftar. For Amri law zev is el lechiyuv. What does that mean? It means that both Morim and Mesukim are chayiv, right? Both Morim and Mesukim are chayiv by gedolim. Because even though that they're going to be bitter, but the Maisa, they're sweet. But the Maisa have be the Gemara is going to ask the kasha. Amar Rabbi Hoyrab Kanina B'Tzipari K'Divi Omer Zev Zel Liftar. Well, the Madam Zev Zel L'Chiyuv Gidolim L'May Chazu. And Rabbi Yechon Hoyel V'Yachol L'Maskanai. They are you could sweeten them by if you cook them, it gets sweet. That's the Gemara. Now, Tosis is very bothered by this pshat. That Rashi learns Zev Zel Liftar means that both Mesukim and Morim are potter, like Tanim, and Zev Zelachiev is talking about both Mesukim and Morim by Gedolim is Chayiv. So Zok Tosfos, it's mashma Zev Zelachtor Amri law Zev Zelachiev is mashma that they're talking about the same thing, and the Mike said they're not talking about the same thing. Zev Zelachtor is talking about by Ketanim, and Amri law Zev Zelachiev meaning by Gedolim. That's Tosfos Kashas. So Tosfos learns that Zev Zel Liftor means that Shkedim Amorim are 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 both Potter. They're both Shkedim Amorim are Chayiv Saiktanim Agdolim. We're both only talking about Shkedim Amorim. That's what Tosfos learns. Now Tosfos was uncomfortable learning that maybe we're going on the Mishnah. The Mishnah says Chayiv b'Shkedim Amorim Potter b'Mesukim Zev Zel Liftor. Or right that meaning right. If we're going on the Mishnah, it would be very gishmak, right? It would make sense if we're going on the Mishnah. But Lamaisa, Smashim is going on the Brisa. But I want to tell you, Rashi is gonna be curious. If you look on the side of the Gemara, they bring down that the Gerson, the Tosefta, is that the Brisa fears us. Nimtza Kashabe. Where's the on the side? Let me my Gemara, they have it. 1 second. Let's see if I can find it here. Sav Yad Yoshin, it says Nimsa Chayiv b'Morim Patim b'Mesukim Chayiv b'Mesukim Patim b'Morim. So now it's very gishmak on the Nimsa Chayiv b'Morim Patim b'Mesukim. You could say right Zev Zev Luftor and Chayiv b'Mesukim Patim b'Morim Zev Zev L'Chiyav. Yeah. But Tosis didn't want to say that because Loy Tosis with Loy Tosis the Gemara is going on the Brisa, and the Brisa says first discuss the Shkedim Amorim Tanam Chayavim Gedolim Peturim. And then Mesukim Gedolim Chayavim Tanam Peturim. We're talking about Shkedim Amorim first, and Mesukim, and then we talk about Mesukim first. So we're not talking about Mesukim and Amorim in one sentence in the Brisa, like Taisvis. Okay, right. Zok more right. Hatemed. Let's move on. Let's go quickly. Hatemed actually hichitz. We'll just start this Mishnah and start the. Yeah, I guess we'll just start the Mishnah. It's already late. Just say we have to say the mamish, the biggest yisoid over here in the first parak in Chulin is in this Rashi. Hatemed ad shaloi hichmitz ain't a nikah b'chesed ma'isa. This Gemara is going to talk about Bez Hashem. We're going to be married on this Gemara Bez Hashem tomorrow. That what's temed? Temed is it's raisin or Tosfos says it's from shmarm, raisin wine. In other words, what you're doing is you're pouring water into some kind of a grape product, and you're making it from it. It's going to ferment again, and it's going to turn the water into wine. And the halacha is like this. The halacha is that wine is nikach miketz of ma'isa, but water is not nikach miketz of ma'isa. And the reverse, wine doesn't pass a mikvah. Machenkin, but water does pass a mikvah. So therefore, so this tamed, it depends. At one point, it's going to be considered water, and then at the next point, it becomes wine. When it's water, it has a full enough when it's and wine has a full enough. Hatemed actually hitchmits before it fermented, so it's considered water. So it's any nikah because of ma'isa or personal samikva. Misha hechmitz, but once already fermented, so nikah because of ma'isa now already has it done like wine. So it's nikah because of ma'isa and personal samikva. That's that. The halacha we're going to be back on that Bez Hashem tomorrow. Ha'achin hashutfin. We're talking about two brothers that are together in business. The question is like this: were they, or did they already split up the two sabayis? Did they already split up the estate, and then afterwards they decided to become partners? Or we're talking about, and sometimes we have two brothers that never split up the estate yet. So to Mishnah, ha'achem hashotrim kishach hayavim bekalboin peturim mimayitza behema. So what does this mean? Means like this: that Maisa Behema, the halacha is that Maisa Behema, the halacha is that Shutfim are not a part of Maisa Behema. So therefore, normal cases where they already split up the estate and they became Shutfim again, so they're parts of a Maisa Behema because they're Shutfim. And therefore they're going to be chayiv in a kalban. What's the halacha of a kalban? The halacha of a kalban is that every single person, when he gives a machzah shekel, he has to add a little bit for the money changer. And if you give one whole shekel instead of two machzah shekels, you're even two carbonis, no problem. So they're just partners. They're regular two partners. Avadi, you need a carbon. Why not? However, what does that mean? Zok Rashi, a massive chiddush. Zok Rashi that before, and this is the source. This is mamish the source of the concept of tusas abayis that the Vel calls it, right? Meracha Zerua brings a raya from this Gemara that the pshat is that, and this is the big sugi in Yeshneichlin, that they bring this raya from this Gemara. That what? So Rashi that before they split up, it's not the pshat. They're not even shutfim. So they're not even shutfim. So they're not shutfim. They're still in one rishus. So memela, they're not mechuyev ma'aser behem. It's not called a shutfis. But even more than that, they're patim nakalben. Why are they patim nakalben, Zakrashi? Because the halacha is that if one person is paying the machzah shekel for somebody else, then they pated you on the kalben. Right. So over here, Zakrashi, it's not the pshat that they're bringing the machzah shekel even. So the lashon of Rashi is. פטור מן הקרמה לגבי, ששקל מן שניהם שקל שלם, שמומן אביהם בחסוי עומד, ואביהם השקל על בוניו או על אחד מבני עירי, ופטור מן הקרבה. Somehow, it's considered still Not the pshat is Tuvas Abayis is some sort of an abstract corporation. Tuvas Abayis, we look at it as if the father is still here somehow. That's what's mashma Rashi, because second what? Yeah. Still b'cheskes aviyam, and he's still holding on to it in the mail. If he's paying the shekel, that's the halacha that he's part of a makal. And yeah, that's the kiddush in this mishnah. Okay.